How does one stand out on the fields of Ilium, with allies whose names have been recorded in history, from the nigh invincible Achilles to the tactical Odysseus, both of whom were favored by gods? How does one get noticed? For one man, it was simple. Be the strongest. But that title, it's Achilles's, right? Mayhaps you could say that. But for one man, there was no respite, no getting angry or hiding in his tent, no divine armament, just his strength from tireless battle and triumph. That man, Ajax, son of Telamon. But to many, Ajax the Great. How great is this man, then? If he can supposedly stand out against the tides of countless Greek super soldiers from the age of heroes on the fields of Troy, how strong is he? Ajax was born, the son of King Telamon on Salamis, and quite immediately showed his power from birth. He grew into a colossus of a man, described in several texts as the greatest warrior among the Achaeans, or Greeks, and a towering presence with curly black hair. He was so mighty and built of such composure that he was called the bulwark of the Achaean forces, a bulwark being literally a defensive wall. He was a person that stood unflinching against the tides of battle, and that is something that we are going to examine. Because of that bulwark status, it should come as no surprise that Ajax is mostly described as a defensive fighter, sitting back and defending the ships as the Trojan forces moved forward in offenses. But likewise, when the Greeks were on the offense, he would take his strides into conflict. And that is where his strength gets its true displays. Our first real exposure to Ajax in the Trojan War, at least in the Iliad, comes when in Book 5 he shatters through a Trojan phalanx. You know, a phalanx, the formation of shields and spears that in the ancient days were the equivalent to a tank. Yeah, he smashed through those, before rallying and killing a Trojan named Achaeans, a Thracian warrior who was considered the best men among those forces. And Ajax did so single-handedly, thus showing how far beyond a simple soldier he really was. Ajax would go on to assist the Trojan forces in battling the rest of that long day, so long, in fact, that Hector, chief among the Trojans and the strongest fighter on their side, got attention. So much so he called out their best warrior in single combat, whom he assumed would be Achilles had Achilles not been huddling in a tent. The Greeks, in fear, cast lots to determine who would fight him, and it was Ajax whose name was pulled from Agamemnon's helmet. But there was no fear in his voice. Instead, he readied himself and dropped this line: "My friends, the lot is mine, and I rejoice, for I shall vanquish Hector. I will put on my armor. Meanwhile, pray to King Zeus in silence among yourselves, that the Trojans may not hear you. No, aloud, if you will, for we fear no man. None shall overcome me, neither by force or by cunning." When they met face to face, pleasantries were exchanged, respect present on their lips, but so too was the arrogance battling the last great generation in the age of heroes attests to. Then Ajax let loose with a vicious barrage. Hector's attacks did little to harm Ajax, but Ajax's strikes, when they hit, tore into Hector, drawing blood, and a thrown stone nearly crushed the warrior, had Apollo not interfered on Hector's behalf. And had there been no interference from either side, as the sun grew low to call an end to the battle, the fight very well could have been Ajax's. Regardless of that fact, they exchanged treasures among themselves, in respect for the draw, and the mandates of such a spectacle. Both sides took in a breath of relief, knowing that for now the battle had not been lost, as the races had returned to camp and to the top of the deck. Matching Hector for any period of time, let alone long enough to go into the night, scales Ajax directly to the feats of Hector, and Hector's more impressive performances against the likes of Achilles, putting Ajax somewhere in that wall to small building level of attack potency and strength, though no higher, There's some statements against that, but that's tenuous at best. Ajax gets little more in the way of anything than being a match for Hector. Even when Hector's vigor is restored and the army's knocking at the base of the Greek soldiers, Ajax goes face to face and knocks him aside. As stated, matching Hector, let alone multiple times, is more than enough to quantify his strength as someone who sits among the strongest on the battlefields of Troy. That statement goes doubly so for his durability. He had drawn with Hector and been disarmed once. Yet, among all of the Greek soldiers, only Ajax never suffered an injury. In a battlefield where he was facing phalanxes by himself, where he was bounding between ships, trading blows with Hector, when he was among gods and demigods, helping warriors to fight, he was not hurt. Let that sink in. Now, don't let that sink in too far. I am not going to scale Ajax to the gods on the battlefield, especially since he was one of the few named characters that no god gave much of a boost to, outside of Poseidon reinvigorating him in Book 13. This does say Ajax's durability, while equipped with a shield and armor, exceeds his attack potency and any attack potency on the Trojan side. After all, he faced off with these superhuman foes and just stood there, tanking it. In terms of speed, Ajax does not get many speed feats. He is the defensive wall of the Greek forces and thus does not get anything akin to being as swift as an arrow in flight or evading a spear. Now in Book 15, he leaps from ship to ship, knocking aside Trojan forces and hurling them quickly to keep the ship standing. He does get a statement of vaguely being as fast as a cart being pulled by several horses, but unless those horses were named Gold Ship, the best I can do is say that Ajax is somewhere in those superhuman speeds, as horses typically run between 30 and 40 miles per hour, alongside a superior jumping ability. Ajax is quite impressive. He's just not a speed demon like Patroclus or Achilles or Diomedes. Despite his building-toppling strength and defense against the strongest of Trojan warriors, there was one enemy that Ajax could not overcome: himself. His own pride. Depending on what stories you read or vouch for, the end result is the same. Ajax the Greater, in shame for his actions, be it failing to beat Odysseus, be it slaying a group of sheep in madness, be it being upset at the lack of accommodation, he takes his own life. Among the Achaeans, he was called the strongest and the bulwark of their camps. He fought and drew and nearly slew the strongest of the Trojans, and seemed to be the only one on the battlefield capable of doing so. Buildings would have tumbled from his spear strikes, his hand mighty enough to hurl man-sized rocks with ease, his legs strong enough to leap from ship to ship, single-handedly defending against an army. Is there any wonder he is called Ajax the Great? As always, thanks for watching. Stay hydrated and be good people.